As the church, not just this church, not only Holy Family, but as the Catholic Church celebrates Grandparents' Day, I begin by acknowledging our grandfather, Deacon Bob. I know there's Deacon Bob II, he's around here somewhere, of course, but Deacon Bob, happy Grandparents' Day to you, and thank you for all that you have done for us and continue to do for us here at Holy Family Parish. So along with you and the other Deacon Bob, I think and I promise prayer to all of our grandparents here at our parish. So it's interesting, you might not have realized that the church has a Grandparents' Day. If you're a grandparent, you know all about those Grandparents' Day at schools and the Hallmark Day, whenever that is. But there's a reason that this day is Grandparents' Day. The reason it's today is that it's the first Sunday, the Sunday being, of course, the day that we all gather together, the first Sunday after the feast of Saints Joachim and Anne. This year, that just happened to be yesterday. Joachim and Anne, of course, are saints, and not only saints, a couple, but also the grandparents of Jesus, the parents of the Blessed Virgin Mary. So in honoring our grandparents, we think especially about those wonderful witnesses of faith that they were. We don't know a lot about them, but we do know a lot about Mary. We know a lot about their daughter. And as Mary is able to say, do whatever he tells you, and of course before that she says, let it be done to me according to your will, God, whatever you want, and she tells us to do that, that of course inspires not just in us, but also in Jesus. Jesus who says, not my will, but your will be done, as he taught us to pray in the Our Father. Today we hear that prayer of the Our Father in the Gospel. But back to asking. So I think that those who are best at asking for things, those who are expert askers, those who are most effective, most successful in asking, that is, in getting what they want, are the youngest among us. So we're celebrating Grandparents' Day, but looking at your grandchildren for just a moment, our young children here in our parish. Now, we all want things, but I don't think anyone understands better than a young person, sometimes the younger the better, that if you want something, you ask. You don't just ask once or twice or 3 times or 4 times, you ask until you get it. Mom, 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 dad, dad, dad. If you're parents, you know about that, and of course, that's also said to grandparents. But a very clear memory of growing up is that I would do that, of course, to my parents, but I figured out early on, and I think most kids do, that grandparents are an easy mark. It takes a while to get what you want from your parents. It doesn't take so long to get from your grandparents, and of course you're not around them as much, and maybe that's why. But I knew that, and that was one of the reasons I'm sure that I was close to my grandparents when I knew them before they passed on. But I thought of this past week because I was back there at the scene of the crime, as it were. That store is long closed. But I just returned from vacation in Eel River, Michigan, and for many years, the building is still there, there was a general store. And so about 50 years ago, I was sent there on a mission. My parents sent me there to buy a few things from the general store that we needed. So I went there, and they made sure, and they went through with me how much each thing cost, so we made sure that I had enough money. I went over there dutifully, went to the store, just not even a block away from where we stayed for the summer, and I asked for the items because this little store, most things were out on the shelf. You actually asked the shopkeeper, and they would go back and get things. So as that shopkeeper came with the things that I asked for, the things that I had money to pay for, he brought an additional item. And the additional item was something that he knew I would like because he knew me. It was a small town. Everyone went to that general store. And he brought me an ice cream cone. And he gave it to me, and I explained to him, Mom and Dad went over with this to me a couple times. This is all the money I have. I don't have enough money for that. I have to get these things. And he smiled, happy birthday. He knew it was my birthday. And he gave that to me. And I remember walking back with a great smile on my face and enjoying the ice cream, but with complete shock and bewilderment. Never did I ever, at least did I remember to that point in my life, did I get something without asking. I didn't say anything to him. How did he know? Of course, he figured it out. It wasn't hard to figure out because we went there a lot. But my little kid's logic, I didn't understand that. How did he know what I want? And it was for free. He didn't charge me. And you might say that was good business because, of course, he knew what I was going to do, tell my parents about it. But he didn't do it because he was a good businessman. In order to make that little business run, he had to be. But it was truly an act of kindness. This was 50 years ago. And I remember it so clearly. It was no big deal, you might say. It was just a little ice cream cone. How much did that cost him? But it was the idea, that thoughtfulness, that kindness. And so, as God tells us, as he gives us the Our Father in the Gospel, and also as we hear this wonderful back and forth, this conversation. And as Abraham is talking, I hear him talking in a kid's voice, because he's asking over and over and over and over again. And he's bargaining, he's begging, he's pleading for his people that they not be destroyed. And what's so beautiful about that passage is not only, of course, God gives in, because God is merciful, that's not surprising, but that Abraham has the confidence to ask over and over again. And he said, I don't want you to become angry with me. He realized that. He didn't want God to punish him for asking over and over. But he had the confidence, he had the courage, he had the conviction that God is love. Clearly he knew that, or he wouldn't even ask the question. And Jesus tells us many times in the gospel, I know what you need before you ask. That shopkeeper, that owner of that general store, knew what I liked. We went there a lot. He didn't have to ask. He simply gave it to me because he cared. That was a simple act by a store owner, but if people who are basically strangers can do things like that, acts of kindness for us, how much more does our Father take care of us? And as we look at our grandparents, one of the great gifts that grandparents bring to the church, and of course to families in many other ways, is that you, grandparents, are often the first teachers in the faith. The plan, of course, is that the parents fill that role, but sometimes mom and dad are not the best of teachers for whatever reason. And sometimes they're not around so much. Sometimes grandparents spend more time with kids, their grandchildren, than the parents do. And sometimes the parents aren't around. Sometimes, as you know, grandparents raise their grandchildren. And that, of course, is a great act of love. But the greatest part of that act of love, being people of faith, is that you teach your grandchildren how to love Jesus. You don't teach them to know about God, facts and information, but rather you teach them about relationship. You teach them how to pray, to talk to God. And this is something that Abraham knew, but where did he learn it from? He probably learned it from his parents, if not also his grandparents. Jesus is always teaching us to pray, as he does today with the Our Father. But how did he learn how to pray? No doubt Mary, his mother, and Joseph, his father, taught him how to pray. Like all kids, that's how we learn. We learn from our parents, or sometimes from our grandparents as well. But where did they learn that? Of course, yesterday's feast day, Joachim and Anne, the grandparents of Jesus. So important to honor them. Someone once said to me, it's just like, well, that's one set of grandparents for Jesus. Folks, that's the only one. Jesus, of course, is the son of Mary, and he is generated, he is given to us. The life comes into Mary by the power of the Holy Spirit. God truly is his Father. He doesn't have two sets of grandparents, he is one, Joachim and Anne. So we remember their faith, and again, we don't know much about their life, but to have a daughter like Mary, how powerful was that prayer that they must have prayed with her, that life of prayer. Not just now and again, but it must have been a constant prayer. Mary, who becomes a woman-made prayer, who teaches us better than anyone else after Jesus himself what it is to be in relationship. And the only way to get to know God is to talk to him. And to talk to him, Jesus is saying, ask and you shall receive. I remember some years later, when I had grown up, one of my nephews, who's now in his middle 30s, when he was a little kid, he was praying for something. He was very, very frustrated, so he came to me. I wasn't a priest yet, but he came to me as his uncle, and he said, I don't understand God. And I was thinking to myself, neither do I, but I better hear the question and try the best I can to answer. I don't understand God. I was like, what do you understand? It's like, I prayed 3 times for something and God didn't give it to me yet. And I said, well, sometimes it takes more than 3 times. And he didn't give up, and he continued to pray. And what he prayed for, I don't remember what it was, but I remember that prayer was answered. Today, as we come because God knows what we need. The greatest gift that God gives us is love. And his love makes us all his children. You are a beloved son, you are a beloved daughter of God, so you are called, so are you named at your baptism. And we receive the fullness of God's love every time we come to Mass. We've already heard God's love in his word speaking to us, and when we receive him in Holy Communion, he becomes part of us, and we become one with him. So today, as we remember our grandparents, let's remember what it is to be a kid. What kids can teach us when they don't ask once, they ask until they get what they need. Let's pray like that. Let's believe like that. Let's love like that. And let's remember that God is our Father. The Father who is always there for us. The Father who always cares for us. The God who is love, who wants you to live this love that you receive today by giving those simple acts of kindness every day.